All right, Wayne Bettis here, the founder of the Off the Tools podcast. I just want to introduce you to our brand new sponsor, directplumbing.supplies.com. It is founded by a former tradesman who has set up his own plumbing and heating merchants. He has an online shop, which is obviously at directplumbing.supplies.com, and he delivers across the UK. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the show.
You are now listening to Off the Tools with the one and only Wayne Bettis.
If you're passionate and driven and focused in what you do, people will take notice. You can achieve anything you want to achieve in life.
The excuses are not valid.
Welcome to this episode of Off the Tools. Today, I am delighted to be bringing a wonderful guest to the show. A lot of you have probably already heard of this man or had some communications with him or the company that he is part of. Welcome to the show. How are you doing, Ray?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Wayne, and thanks ever so much for having me on. It's a great honour.
It's my pleasure. Trust me, it's my pleasure. So, you're Ray Stafford. You're the managing director of Williams & Co. What can you give our listeners a little bit of a history into who you are, what you've done in the past, what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's been very short and very boring because I've been at Williams for 35 years. I was a young man of 22 when I started, so you can work out that I'm not in my first flush of youth. Before I did this, believe it or not, I was an ambulance driver. Not the paramedic sort that go around scraping bodies off motorways. I was more what these days would probably be called patient transport. So I took little old ladies to the clinics and that sort of thing. Fantastic job it is too, and I take my hat off to those people who still do it. Yeah, definitely. It's a very important role, even more so with the way the world is now. I guess it's even more vital, isn't it? So you've been at Williams for that long. Afraid so. Yeah, can't get a proper job.
Are you the longest serving, or is there anyone that beats you?
Well, our founder, Mick Williams, is still a non-executive director. He doesn't come to work every day, but yeah, he's still on payroll, so I think he outranks me still.
So he still pips you to the post there.
He does, yeah.
All right. Well, what made you join Williams & Co? I guess at the time they were they just a local small merchants? And
the job that I just referred to, the ambulance driving job, was one of those things that the government makes up when unemployment figures are high. So I was on a year's fixed contract. I was looking around, and in those days, if you wanted a job, you looked at the local paper on a Thursday evening. Mm-hmm. So I thought I would advertise my services. So I put a sort of job wanted rather than a job vacancy in the Portsmouth Evening News. I got some very suspect phone calls from some unusual individuals, one of whom turned out to be a local plumbers merchant. And we kind of went from there.
And had you had any connection to the industry before that?
Only sitting and flushing.
Right. Okay. So no family connections, no history there. Wow. Okay. So I am Williams & Co. Obviously, for what most people know now, are what a lot of people would call a national company now. But you're still very much local and sort of like owned yourself, aren't you? Is that correct?
We are, yeah. So Mick Williams founded the business years and years, 1972. The background to that, his dad, Harry Williams, was a local plumbing contractor. He had a car accident back in 1971, unfortunately couldn't drive. So his son, Mick, who was 21, 22 himself at the time, left his job to go and help his dad out with the business, basically acting as a chauffeur.
Okay.
So that involved him in going to local merchants who tended in those days probably to be builders merchants with a plumbing counter. He thought, I guess as young men do, I could do a better job than that. So when his dad recovered and was able to drive himself around, Mick set up the merchant business. And it was very much a local business right up until 2000, a few branches. I could drive to all of them in not only in a day, in a morning, probably.
Okay.
But yeah, since then we've got a bit more ambitious. I think national would be stretching it a little bit. Our e-commerce reach is national because that's the nature of it. I think our most northerly place at the moment is Manchester.
Okay.
I'm from Portsmouth. I think Manchester is in the Arctic Circle. For us, there are shandy swilling southerners on the Isle of Wight. So we're the middle of the country in Portsmouth. Anything north of the M4 is polar bears, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Okay.
So, my apologies to those people who are further north than that.
So
yes,
where did the big shift come then? Obviously, from being a fairly regional size branch based business, was it the internet that basically pushed that development? Or was there anything else behind it?
I think there was a period in 1999 when we were reviewing the business. We had 5 branches. We'd been much the same size, employed the same number of people for several years. And we started looking at our business model. So at that time, we still sold retail. We had a variable price policy. We were just very much like your average local independent merchant. Fantastic relationships with customers. And in 1999, we set out to try and work out, I guess, we'll probably talk about books later on, the sort of thing that Mike Mikhailovich would say, look to see who your perfect customer is and build your business around that. I'm not sure we did it quite as organised a way as I pretend we did now, looking back 20 years later. But we decided that we couldn't service every customer type from retail through to large contracts with the same toolkit. It just didn't seem to work. So we looked at our golden customer. We refer to them as the 1 to 5, but that's a one-man band up to 5 employees. Yep. We started reconfiguring our business around that customer type. And that involved all sorts of things. So we'd used to open Saturday mornings. Well, we stopped doing that. Mick actually spoke himself almost to every customer we had, who said, open earlier in the mornings. Don't worry so much about the weekends, but we'd like to get started earlier. So we opened an hour earlier in the morning.
That's coming, I'm guessing, coming direct from that 1 to 5 group, isn't it?
It is.
The vast majority aren't working weekends, are they? So
I think things have probably changed a little bit since then, but certainly back 20 years ago, they weren't doing that. And we had reps out there negotiating prices. When we went to a fixed price policy, we didn't need reps out negotiating prices anymore, so we were able to deploy them to other roles. One of them became a training manager for us, which did a fantastic job in that role. Another one became a branch manager in one of the new branches we opened. But we found this model that was all about focusing on that customer type, fixed price, trade only. Retail customers are a real pain in the backside. And if you'll forgive me a short anecdote, as I said, we opened on Saturdays in those days, and I was serving on the trade counter in Fareham one weekend, and a very well-nourished lady came in, and she bought you might remember the early Trevi shower valves, which came with a very long arm, and the smallest shower enclosure that we could manage.
Right.
So we found this enclosure that adjusted down to about 670 mil. Plumber chopped the tray into the wall, and she had this enormous Trevi lever valve in there. She came back the following weekend complaining that every time she turned around in the shower, it went cold. Right. Now, we'd been talking on and off about stopping selling retail, and I dealt with the lady and dealt with the problem. I walked upstairs to Mick's office and I said, we got to hang up that trade only sign. We can't do this anymore. We discovered this model, that all the interlinking pieces of it. So we thought, I wonder if we could open another branch. So we tested it. We went to, I think, if I remember rightly, it was Littlehampton down in Sussex, and that went pretty well. And we'd closed off the retail side. So that was 18% of our business the day we did it, January the 1st, 2000. And we thought it might take us a couple of years to get that back from the trade. It took us 3 months, or 14 weeks to be exact.
Oh, that quick? You'd recouped all the... Wow,
yeah.
Amazing.
And I still remember I went to see a competitor in those days before the internet, if you wanted to find out what your competitor was doing, you actually went into their shop with a pile of notes and bought some gear. And a guy at a competitor said, "You won't believe what those idiots at Williams have done. They've just said they won't sell to the public. They'll be bust by Christmas."
Right.
I look back on that with some amusement now.
I bet, yeah.
But it was a bit counterintuitive, I guess, at the time.
Well, that's my first reaction, is that that's a very bold move, wasn't it? It I suppose, like anything, to reap the rewards, you have to take risk, don't you? But in a business like that, where it nearly represented 20% of your sales, that's a big cut to take, isn't it?
It was. But how long have you been in the plumbing game, Wayne?
Since 2002, I started my apprenticeship.
So when you're in a merchant and you're stood behind a retail customer, how do you feel?
Winds me up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Winds me up. I just want to pick them up and put them outside and let me crack on.
and if you quote a customer and you maybe marked your materials up a little bit, and suddenly they say, "Oh, I got a quote from your merchant and it's 30 quid cheaper than that," how do you feel then?
Annoyed.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was we'd had that feedback. We understood that. It still amazes me. So if I go and get my car serviced and I get, I don't know, the brake pads are changed and the air filter's done, and that turns up on my bill, I don't think the garage have done that at cost. I absolutely know that they buy it at trade price and they sell it to me at a retail price. And that's just how the world works, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the plumbing game, customers really don't seem to understand that.
No.
So
it's been, obviously with me, I've always had the internet. So it's always been there for me, that the customer have always had that reference to it. Whereas like the guy that taught me, it was a real shock to him when he had to start thinking about not making the margins on the materials because people were starting to come back with alternatives, and it was like, wow, how has it gone to this level?
Yeah, and I mean, the internet's done some wonderful things, but I'm not sure that that's one of them.
No. Yeah.
So, I've lost the thread of what I was talking about now. I think we were talking about how we came to expand. We found this business model and all the bits of it fitted together. And every time we opened a branch, it seemed to do well. It also made it a little bit easier. The fixed price model particularly it made recruiting staff a great deal simpler. All I needed to do was find people who knew something about plumbing and loved customers. Yeah. I didn't have to find people who were commercially aware. Now, some of our branch managers are very commercially aware and some of their team are. But they don't need to think about that. They need to focus on is giving that fantastic customer service. And it's down to me and my colleagues in the commercial team to make sure we get the price correct. Yeah. And we don't always do that, but we work pretty hard at it. So,
and that's one thing that is what I love about your model, is that it's the price is the price. So you know where you're at. You don't have to think, oh, is that, if you go to a different branch, is that guy charging me more than what my terms were at the other branch, and all of that sort of backwards and forward in between everybody.
Before 2000, we used to do all those terrible things. If you had a mate in our branch in Pompey, you'd get a better price than if you went to Gosport. I mean, it's a nonsense. It's no way to run a business. And we spend half our time dealing with angry customers or writing credit notes for overcharges. Yeah.
But then I suppose that comes from knowing who you want to serve, doesn't it? Sort of
without plan thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Because without that, that model won't work with a larger organization that maybe can bulk buy, that can do a lot, maybe do things in a different way. Whereas the 1 to 5, they want to know what it costs. They want it the same cost in this branch and that branch, online, and simple and easy to manage, don't they?
Yeah, well, every moment that a self-employed tradesman spends either haggling over a price or arguing over an invoice, that's wasted time. That's time that he could either have spent on billable work, or he could have spent with his family or enjoying his hobbies. It's absolute dead time. So that's what we try to remove.
Right. Well, yeah, that's very good. And so as a whole, then, with regards to like the plumbing industry, you're at the forefront of that. You do a survey quite regularly, don't you? And
we do. Yeah.
How does it look like from your perspective? as a merchant, as a sort of voice in that industry?
Oh, several different perspectives on that. If we leave the COVID thing out for the time being, because that's obviously created some operational challenges for everybody. It's a cliche, but the only thing that's constant is change. So, I often read somebody posting online, that the trade's going to the dogs. It's a race to the bottom. I'm not sure that's true. I think that the trade is changing, and it's a race to innovate would be the way I would phrase it. We've seen a great example. We saw Boxed, if that's how you pronounce it, come up with this online quoting tool. Now, love or hate their business model or whatever their relationships with manufacturers are, it's a fantastic customer-facing tool.
Yeah.
They're everywhere now. There's, I don't know how many different versions of it, but they have just changed the way that we think about pricing.
Yeah.
And I think in a few years' time, the idea of going to somebody's house, certainly if it's a conventional property, with your tape measure and your notepad and measuring up and sucking your teeth and chatting up the missus and all that, I think that's going to be dead and gone. I think that would have gone the same way as, if I used to get car insurance by going into Swinton's on the high street and telling them about my car and giving them my name and address, I wouldn't dream of doing that now. And I wouldn't book a flight by going into a travel agent either. The world's just changed. So,
and these innovations they happen constantly. It's not a one-time thing. There'll be something else in could be soon, could be in a bit longer that changes it again. And you've only I obviously in the modern world, you've only got to look at the way Uber come in and absolutely totally sort of transformed the taxi industry. Boxed have. I still think that their model is amazing, obviously proven. The numbers don't lie. There is that, but I still believe that there is still a huge portion of people that want some human contact in that relationship. That's going to change as the demographics of homeowners start to become younger, or the younger people growing up. But it's definitely, people have to pay attention to that change and iterate what they're doing to try and complement the new normals, don't they?
Absolutely. And I can imagine that somebody at Swinton's, if there was such a thing as the car insurers talk group on Facebook, there would be someone on there going, the car insurance business has gone to the dogs, it's a race to the bottom, my high street brokerage is no longer profitable. Well, no, it probably isn't, because you have to move with it. There are alternatives. You can get into niche markets. So there are, just to continue the car insurance analogy probably to death, there are people who deal in only in vintage or in very high value or whatever that probably can sustain that high administrative overhead model. But I've often just thought that the cost of acquisition for somebody doing, say, boiler changes. So if you actually drive to someone's house, well, you've already probably spoken to them on the phone, you drive to their house, you spend a little bit of time because you want to engage with them, don't you? So you spend a bit of time, you have to do the physical bits of measuring up, drive home again, you produce the quote, you maybe have to follow that up, and you might have to do that 3 times to get one job because you don't hit every single time. What is the cost per acquisition of one boiler swap?
Yeah, if you factored in the time as well as the petrol and
the misses as well as the hits. It's not just the hit that you get. You got to factor in all the misses as well.
Well, that's one thing that I am thankful for COVID for, because about 2 years ago, I wanted to create my own boiler business. I wanted to be able to be anywhere and still do that. And I trialed surveying remotely online via video calls last year, and it flopped. I asked about 30 customers, no one wanted to do it. They didn't understand it. It was all like, oh, no way. I sell more boilers sitting here in my office now. I've only been to 1, maybe 2 physical quotes since March, and we're on track for 150 boilers this year to show the level of boilers that we fit. So the world has changed massively, even more so. So Boxed were like the the first change, but it's now gone a lot further since COVID and since the way people are with interactions. And to me, it's exciting though. I love it. There's opportunity. So
yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether people stay that way, because I think I've just given an enthusiastic argument in favour of new technology. You said earlier there's still a lot of customers out there, and the old saying, "People buy from people." I think we are still going to have to knock on doors and get our tape measures out, for some years to come, and how people engage in that process. Right? It's not just a transactional thing. Once you're in somebody's house, you're selling from the day you've set foot over the threshold, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I think those skills can't be undervalued. It's just that they don't deploy in every situation.
No, definitely not. And for me, it's when I'm on the video, I just basically try to make it as natural as possible, if that makes sense, as if I'm there to try and like cross that barrier of not physically being there, but emotionally, like they can see me, they can feel my energy behind that video that I'm doing, to try, because obviously that was one of my biggest assets, was being in that home, being so like enthusiastic and warm around whatever it was that I was selling them. And so I just try to get that across on the cameras now when I'm surveying. So and so far so good. But I'm going to move on to some more questions now, if that's okay. There's been, the last couple of years, there has been just a phenomenal increase in vans being broken into. There's been some high profile campaigns going on, from key people in the industry. And I know the little bit that I know about you, you don't do things to be put on the pedestal, but there is something that you have done, which I think should be mentioned to get people aware of it. And that's Tool Angel. So firstly, why did you do it? And what is it really? Okay,
well, I'll probably do the what is it first. So we know that lots of people have their tools stolen. We also know that the impact of that is far greater than the financial value of the tools. It's the day lost, or maybe even a week lost. It's the project that's been let down. It's the referral that you don't get because although the customer was understanding, their job still ran over and they're not amused by that. I think there's a psychological hit as well. It's tough being a self-employed tradesman. And when I probably shouldn't swear on a family podcast, but when some tosser comes and nicks your tools, I think that's the psychological impact of that is more than the simple theft.
It's like a low blow, isn't it? If that makes sense. Yeah, it's like, really like gut wrenching. Like
absolutely. So what Tool Angel is a lone set of tools. So mostly power tools, but a flue gas analyzer. And I should name check Makita, Kane, and Armor Guard. So Makita helped us with the tools. Kane were very generous with the flue gas analyzers, and Armor Guard helped out with some armored boxes, like a Van Volt type product.
Okay.
And we will lend those to customers who are the victims of crime for a short period, maybe 3 weeks. No charge, no obligation. At the end of the period, we'll just take them back. The idea is to give that victim of crime the chance to just reorganize themselves, maybe claim on their insurance if they're insured, basically get their shit together, but also be able to work that day. So, if the person involved is within our delivery area, we'll try and get that there same day for them.
Yeah. Wow, that's just a fantastic. Obviously, it doesn't solve the problem of the idiots that are going around doing it, but it's a very good way of trying to bring support to these tradespeople when they're in that hour of need, isn't it?
It is. What it really needs is for chief constables and police commissioners to start taking the problem seriously. That's and the courts. They need to take it more seriously. But I can't fix that. So let's focus on what I can fix, which is probably just to make a number of lives a little bit easier. And we went out to our customers quite a long time ago now. This must have been a year and a half ago. We did a number of focus groups, and we had a list of about 30 or 40 things that we might do as service enhancements, new product lines and so forth. And I sat behind the one-way mirror as group after group of our customers talked to the facilitators. And it's quite humbling, actually, because you've put some ideas on there that you think are absolutely brilliant, and you see tradesman after tradesman going, nah, that's rubbish, that is. The one thing, though, that came out, and I can still remember it was number 27 on the list, was the thing that we now called it Lifesaver, I think, at that time. We now call it Tool Angel.
Lead Hero is the UK's #1 marketing automation platform for ambitious trades businesses looking to save time, make more money, and level up. Because just getting leads is not enough anymore. Lead Hero will help you triple your sales and maximize profits with our job flow acceleration system. Visit leadhero.ai to learn more.
And virtually everyone that saw it said, that's a brilliant idea. A couple of people said it's going to be too expensive, and it isn't cheap. I can't pretend it is. We've got I think we've got 20 sets. Each one's 2,000 or 3,000 quid a pop. Even after the support we've had from manufacturers. But on the other hand, I can use them several times. So hopefully we haven't written a single one off yet, I don't think. But yeah, that's the story behind it. We just rolled it out when COVID hit. I think January the 1st was launch. And we were just starting to get some traction, and then COVID hit, and of course we got wiped off the headlines for that. So part of our the problem is somebody's a victim of crime, so that you go out in the morning, your van's been done. The first thing you're going to do is not go online. So I wonder if the plumber's merchant somewhere out there that'll lend me some tools. Yeah, you might go and post an angry post on Facebook, but then you're on the phone to your insurance broker. You're trying to reorganize work. You borrow stuff off a mate, whatever it is that you're doing. So what we're trying to do is use social media to look out for those shit posts. Yeah, and then say, mate, I'm really sorry to hear about that. Can we help? And
I think it's fantastic, and I think that more people need to know about it because it could just help, with everything that's going on.
Life's hard enough, isn't it?
It's hard enough getting, with everything. So if one more person can hear about it, then I'm happy days. So make sure after we look at putting some promotions in my groups to get people aware.
That would be fantastic.
Of an awareness campaign. Because
if people are watching it, if you just Google Tool Angel, you'll probably find it on the first page. Hopefully it'll be the top of the listing.
Excellent.
And I hope that you never need it.
Yes, hopefully not. Like touch wood, I've not had it personally.
Oh, don't say it, Wayne. Don't say it on air.
I'm not even going to lie. I don't even own a van anymore. So I as the name of the podcast, I'm off the tools. So I'm thankful from that perspective. But let's move on to more of a positive thing. And one. Every time I speak. When I say speak, a lot of the speak that I've done with you, Ray, has been online, so it's actually texting, comments in posts. And you are just like a genie bottle of like advice, guidance. You feel like you're like the big uncle of all these Facebook communities. Everyone's sort of like shitting themselves, shouting about, arguing, and then you'll come in with this like educated, very well explained comment, and it's sort of like. Yeah, well, that's sort of what we all needed to hear.
So please don't put me on that pedestal. I'm going to post a load of absolute crap from now on.
No. You're definitely. I'm going to try and get the nickname as Uncle Ray. You're going to be Uncle Ray to everybody. Sorry, I think you deserve it because the advice that you give is as I've seen firsthand. It's not only helped me personally. I've seen firsthand it have huge impacts on people across the communities that I run and all of the other communities that are out there online. And to see it, like you sent me a document called The Williams Way, and I was just blown away. And it sort of explained to me why Williams is, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, is spearheading the plumbing and heating industry from a supply chain point of view. Can you explain what the Williams Way is to our listeners?
Yeah, sure. It's a short booklet that we wrote. I'll come to why and when we wrote it in a moment. But the essence of it sets out who we are, why we do what we do, our approach to all manner of things, whether it's to pricing, customers, products, or whatever, it's very short. It's although I think it's about 30 pages long. Each page probably only has between 10 and 40 words on it. We worked really hard to edit it down. So it starts off saying why we are here. And it's because plumbing is important. I think the first words are plumbing matters.
Yeah.
If you think COVID's bad, turn off the drainage and fresh water system of the country for just a few hours and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, it's an incredibly important, critical piece of infrastructure.
Just that first sentence, when I read it, I was just like, that just like elevates the perception of what we actually do, you know, as an industry, doesn't it? When the way that's worded, it just sort of, it's obvious, but until something's like put out there, you don't really realize. And it really shifted my perception just reading that first sentence.
Well, I often draw a comparison between the plumbing industry and the medical profession. So both absolutely critically important. And just like in the medical profession, the doctors and the nurses not unreasonably get, probably the lion's share of the publicity and the credit. But in every sort of healthcare environment, there are the people who deliver the syringes and mend the X-ray machine and just make the whole infrastructure run. And that's what we see as being our part in the plumbing industry. So you guys are the heroes. You're the ones who actually go out and fix Mrs. Smith's water or get her heating back on. We're the people in the background who are helping you with the logistics and trying to make that as smooth as possible. So, but yeah, it is critical. And I don't use it anymore, but I used to do a piece at Induction where I went back through history and worked out the impact on the human population of plumbers, drainage engineers, and irrigation. So basically the water industry on one hand versus the healthcare industry on the other. And to be perfectly honest, I think we would have managed better without doctors and nurses than we would without plumbers and drainage engineers.
Yeah.
So there you go. Next time you're at you're at a social event and somebody tells you they're a doctor, you go, that's really interesting, but I'm a plumber.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense because sanitation and stuff like that is we take it for granted in the West, don't we? That it's just a given, but you take that away and you look at these other countries that sadly aren't in our position, and they would cry out for a plumber, wouldn't they? To bring that skill set in.
And sadly, we see this when there are natural disasters. So there was an earthquake in Chile a while ago. Now, the earthquake was bad enough, and unfortunately, lots of people lost their lives in falling buildings. But I think more people actually died in the cholera outbreak that followed it a week or 10 days later because the freshwater and drainage infrastructure had been destroyed. Yeah. So.
And you don't tend to see that side because it doesn't make the news, does it?
No, it doesn't.
The initial headline of the incident comes out, and you see it, and then you move on, and it's forgotten about, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, on the Williams way, this is sort of combined in with one of the questions we had from a guy in the community called David Armstrong. He was basically saying, how do you recruit your staff? Because they are fundamentally why everyone comes back to you, aren't they? Because
absolutely. Yeah.
So if you could just give us a little bit of a briefing on why and what you do to recruit, that would be amazing.
Well, we address it in the Williams way. It has a couple of pages. I think. In terms of advertising, we do much the same as everyone else does. A lot of it's online these days, and we post vacancies on our website. I think the key thing is the selection criteria. So we have two primary tests. The first is if I hire this individual, so if I'm the recruiter, if I hire this individual who's in front of me, after they've had a chance to settle in and do their basic training and stuff like that, will they be in the top 50% of people doing that job in the business?
Okay.
If I don't think they will be, I shouldn't hire them. Because if I hire into the bottom 50%, I am slowly reducing the quality of my workforce every time I do it.
Yeah, that makes
straightforward arithmetic.
Yeah.
So
A players, I call them. So you're looking for A and B players rather than C and D players.
Quite so. And actually, I'd like to change that probably to 30%. Only recruit into the top 30%. As time goes on. So that's one. And that's fairly straightforward. And I think you probably apply that in any business.
Yeah.
The second one, the one I think is perhaps unique to us, I've certainly never heard of it elsewhere, is I imagine a young relative, maybe the first time they go into the workplace. So for me, it's my daughter. For other people, it might be somebody else. Say, if I hired this person in front of me, would I be happy if my daughter, when she was 17 years old, in her first job, was working alongside or even being managed by this individual? Because if I wouldn't be happy with that, why am I asking someone else to send their kids to work with them?
Yeah.
And it's a really powerful test when you think about it.
That is, yeah. Again, it's a very simplistic ideology. It's a simple question, isn't it? But it opens up a whole sort of channel of thoughts, doesn't it, around whatever person that is in front of you.
It does. And it ends conversation. You've got an interview panel, might be 2 or 3 people on it, and you've seen a candidate and you're mulling it over, and somebody says, in my case, my daughter's name's Grace. Would you like Grace to work for that individual? And if I'm going, that's it. That's the end of the conversation.
The answer's there, isn't it?
And that can come from not just from me. Everyone, even if you don't have kids of your own, you've got your little brother or your favourite nephew or your friend's kid that you care about. Everyone's got one, and we just use that as a test. And it, bit of a leveler, isn't it? Like as a like, yeah, no, I like that. On that note, before we move on, because of about recruitment, them 2 bits of information are amazing. It's very simple but easy to apply. But what I've also seen you comment a lot about is most of our community are similar to your ideal clients, 1 to 5, man, woman bands, small enterprises. And a lot, you see the questions all the time, and I see you comment very regularly on this about employing staff, taking on that next level of staff. And the ever so common time is now. Everyone's running around and they're trying to grab whatever employee they can. Can you just, on air, just give us that sort of what you would, the process and why you would recommend that? Because I just want to get that out. Firstly, I'd say don't employ staff when you're busy. It's the worst possible time to do it. And there's a number of reasons. Firstly, if you're busy, in our game, it's just quite seasonal. Probably everybody's busy. So the best candidates are not likely to be free. Secondly, it's hard choosing the right employee, identifying them, recruitment, onboarding, those key early weeks are very time consuming. If you try and do that in October, when the phone's ringing off the hook and you're trying to get 6 installs into a 5-day week, you're not going to give it your best. And I would say if you're planning to expand your business, that's probably another part to it. You should expand your business because you want to expand it, because your plans involve getting larger. Lots of people actually come into self-employment either perforce because perhaps they're made redundant or they've moved to a new town and can't get a job, or because they like the lifestyle. And if actually it's a lifestyle business, what you want to do is control your own working hours and things like that. Probably employing staff just because you're busy is not the brightest choice. It would probably be better just put your prices up a little bit, do a little bit less work, make more money, have more time with the family. If you came into it for lifestyle, prioritize your lifestyle. But if you genuinely are planning to increase your business, you've come into business because you want to build something, then you should be planning and resourcing that. And the time to be recruiting is probably in April, May, and June, where you will find in our business, you'll find great candidates. People perhaps have tried self-employment, but perhaps decided for one reason or another they don't want to do that. You'll have good candidates. You'll have the time to screen them properly. And when you're onboarding them during July and August, you can probably afford to spend time on site with them to make sure that they are delivering the quality of work, which the reason you're busy probably is because you have bloody high standards and you deliver great quality and therefore customers recommend you. But you don't want to compromise that because you either made a mistake hiring or because people who started for you are getting inadequate supervision. Maybe they just don't know what your standards are. Yeah. So,
and that lesson is so important. I applied it this year. So in the past, I've employed basically when I've needed, too late for when I've needed, and gone down the same route. Time and keep getting burnt. Bad people. This year, I'd taken on your advice, my own knowledge that I'd sort of gathered up over the last few years, and I employed an admin staff, and gave her a salary, I think whatever it is, 300 quid a week, whatever it was. And I knew the first 2 months, there wouldn't be hardly any work for her to do, because I wanted to be able to show her my way of doing it, and then basically negotiate, discuss and find out whether my ways, if she can bring anything to it, if there's better ways. And we slowly built her in. And now it's October, she's running everything, and I'd be absolutely lost without her. But if I hadn't have sacrificed them first couple of months in knowing that it's going to cost me money, knowing it's going to cost me time, then I would never be in the position that I'm in now to have time to do these things, these podcasts and the coaching and stuff that I do, and you played a fundamental part in that.
Can I send you an invoice for consultancy?
It's too late. I got the advice 12 months ago, so it's gone. Sorry. But it's a very important lesson, isn't it? Because
it is, yeah.
It makes or breaks you as a company. And when you're a small business, you are everything. So it's your name on the chopping block, isn't it? So,
but you're right. I mean, you are everything. When you're in a small business, your own accountant, you're your own solicitor, you're also your own HR team. There's a reason that human resources is a profession that people get qualified in and work all their life in. It isn't simple. Now, it's a relatively small subset of what a full-scale HR professional would do, what you do in an independent business. But nonetheless, it's worth investing some time and effort in doing it properly. I mean, most of us, or most tradesmen, invested years in gaining and polishing their trade skills, which they practice every day. Not surprisingly, they're bloody good at it. But these other skills that genuinely have to be learned and practiced, you're not going to do that in the middle of October when you're rushed off your feet.
No, 100% not. And what you just said there is why I do what I do now with the Off the Tools podcast, with the coaching and stuff, is because a good tradesman or tradeswoman will spend years honing their craft. But then one day they get pissed off with their boss and start a company. And hats off to them, fair play, great, amazing. But you wouldn't have left school at 16 and gone and bought a van with a load of tools and gone round fitting boilers. You knew you had to
learn.
Earn that craft and build it. And like little things like my off the tool stuff that I do is all designed to try and give some foundational support to people, because I'm not a huge multi-million pound business. I can't help you become that. But what I can do is help you learn some basic business, some sort of like school, I call it schoolboy knowledge that just gives you an underpinning for you to then seek more and sort of slowly build it. And with people like you in the communities where you're constantly sort of adding these valuable insights in, it's opening people up to that world that there is more to running a trades business than just being good at your job. Your people like you are helping people understand that. Definitely.
Cool.
So I just want to say thank you for that. And
you work pretty hard at it yourself, mate. So
I try to, and hopefully it comes across because I actually genuinely love it. It's like I hate seeing so many people going round in circles constantly, up, down, up, down, up, down, round and round and round. And it's frustrating to see across these communities. There's people that I've been speaking to for years and they're no further because they haven't sought out the right information. And ultimately you've got to take action, haven't you? And, information's one thing, but action is another.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
On that note, I would love to hear. You have recommended me some amazing books over the last couple of years. What would you say is your top 3 for our industry? Would you say would give immediate value to people if they took the time to read it?
Could I have 2 for the price of 1 with Mike Mikhailovich's Profit First and the Pumpkin Plan?
Well done on his name, by the way. I just call him Motorbike Mike.
Mike, yeah. I actually wrote it down on my pad because I knew you were going to ask me that one. You gave me a heads up on that. So I'm not sure which one to read first. Probably the Pumpkin Plan first, followed by Profit First. There's actually a fantastic version of Profit First for contractors. I presume you've come across. I know you're a big fan of Motorbike Mike.
Yes, yeah, I've read it. It's actually written sort of on the principles of profit first, but it's by a guy called Sean. I've forgotten his name, but yeah, it's
a development.
I would get both personally. Yeah, I would get both. I'd read the profit first.
Yeah, the straightforward profit first. Yeah. So there's another one. This is not particularly about our industry, although you can apply its principles certainly to the non-trade side, so things like marketing and pricing. There's a guy called Ralph DeBelli who has written a book called The Art of Thinking Clearly.
Yeah,
and he addresses cognitive biases, so the way that each of us look at pieces of information. Facebook is an absolutely wonderful place for seeing this. You see the same facts interpreted in completely different ways by different people, and that's largely because of the cognitive biases that they start with. So yeah, it's written in a very easy to handle way. So it's I think it's about 60 or 80 chapters. Each chapter, though, is only a few pages long. Fantastic as an audio book.
That's what I've listened to it on. Yeah, I listen to it on
short drives because you probably get a couple of chapters in a 10-minute drive to Tesco's or whatever. But that's one of the books that I reread probably every 2 or 3 years just to remind myself, because one of the things I find I'm getting older is I know loads of stuff, but I forget it. And you said earlier, information's fine, but action's finer. I often talk about data, insight, action. Data is fantastic, but if you don't get insight from that data, it's just a load of numbers. And if you don't take action based on your insight, then actually
it was all pointless.
Time. It was, it was just an intellectual exercise. So definitely Ralph DeBelli, The Art of Thinking Clearly. If you're in the mood for something a little bit deeper, the one that my real go-to is a book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by a guy called Richard Rumelt. Now, this is not lightweight. It's probably the one for that long motorway drive when you're going to be several hours in the car. But he works through some case studies from all sorts of businesses, from very large to very small ones, talking people through the principles of strategy. So I think a lot of people just think that strategy is it's the to-do list of somebody with a high salary. And it isn't. It's much more important than that. I think it's the thing that's probably missing from lots of businesses across all sectors, but certainly in ours. The only thing I would say about this, and I'm a big fan of Richard Rumelt, that the first half of the book is much better than the second half. So I have this theory that he had a 200-page book in him, but his publishers wanted a 350-page book.
Right, so it got squeezed out.
Yeah, he did. And but the first 7 or 8 chapters, absolutely fantastic, and has changed my view of business completely. Yeah,
well, anyone listening, all of them ones that you've recommended, I've already listened to, thanks to you. And I believe that I want to throw one in because I don't know. I'm pretty certain it was you that recommended it. Surrounded by Idiots.
Yep. I think you recommended it to me, actually.
Oh, was it? I don't know where. But that's another one that for me, it's like, again, it's a bit more psychological, sort of cognitive ideas, but it's so inspiring and it makes a lot of things that maybe were a bit murky become a bit clearer from that book.
It goes back to that, actually, to cognitive biases, doesn't it? The way people sort of see things through their own lens.
And the different colors of people, the way they segment it. For me, it literally was. I want to read. I'm going to read it. It's going to be one that I read again, definitely, because it was so valuable to me when I first read it.
I think all men should read that before they get married.
Oh, 100% before and children as well. It's helped me with my children as well, because I can see that I've got a son that's a red, just like, gun ho, really. But my daughters are blue, very conservative, a lot more different. It's a must for all aspects of your life, business, family, everything. So that's Surrounded by Idiots. I can't remember who that's by, but just search it. There's not going to be other ones with that title. We're coming to. I think we're coming towards. We're coming up towards the hour mark. So let me think. Where should we head down? A couple of bits of advice that people can sort of leave this conversation with, whether it be business, life, relationships with merchants, whatever it might be. Do you know, something that people can tangibly.
Whatever happens, pay your Williams bill first. No.
I would like to say that's in the Williams Way pamphlet. At the end, part of the relationship is what they expect from us as the customer, and it's one of the things is pay your bill.
Yeah, quite so. I think if I wanted to leave anything in someone's mind is be sure you know why you're in business. What's your business for?
Yeah.
If I touched on this earlier, if this is about lifestyle, then maximize it for your lifestyle. If you've gone into business for lifestyle reasons, what the hell are you working Saturdays and Sundays and late nights for? Now, maybe you're doing it because you do that 6 months of the year, and then you have the summer off. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But don't come and be a slave to it. The advice is always either choose your work with greater care or put your prices up. Probably both.
I'd second that. It basically, the fundamental bit from that statement is know what you want. Yes, identify, absolutely. Get clarity on what you're actually achieving for.
Yes. Yeah. And if you want to build a business, and sometimes it goes from one to the other, so people leave for lifestyle reasons, but actually they get the bug because business is exciting, and well, it is to sad buggers like me,
and me,
I didn't, when I first started in this business, I didn't do it expecting to end up building a chain of plumbers merchants. It was just the next thing to pay the rent. So if you understand that, and then if your plan is to build a business, then plan it properly. And I always give the same advice, which is think about the customer journey, think about operations, and think about reporting, financial controls and administration. Think about it under those headings. If we had another hour, I could probably spend an hour just fleshing that out, but we'd probably bore people.
Unfortunately, it's one of the sides of business that doesn't get any kudos, as in no one sees it, no one praises you for doing it, like the planning and I think there's this, you'll probably know it better than me, but is it the 5 Ps? Planning prevents piss poor performance. Have I got that right?
Prevents piss poor performance. Yes.
And it's so true, Joe. Like even to the point where we had decorators in my house this week, right? I would have had the room decorated in a day if I had just gone out there and just done it on my own. But I paid to have an expert in, and he sat there and he spent an hour going around planning what the plan of attack was for that. Yeah. He spent the whole goddamn day filling and sanding, preparing. That was it. That one whole day of preparing to then slap the paint on. But it produced a room that looks absolutely flawless.
The finish will be perfect. Yeah.
And the principle is the same for everything, isn't it? If you spend that bit of time, that bit of strategy, isn't it? It's about strategizing. Sort of take yourself away from the grind and just look a little bit further ahead and try and make some ideas and preparation, and it's so important.
And if, another piece of advice for doing that is go away from your natural environment when you're doing it. So we had a planning day yesterday, and although we've got an office building here and we've got lots of conference rooms, we went to an external conference room, and we turned our computers off and we put our phones on silent.
Okay.
And we spent time doing that. And I'll sometimes even do that just on my own. I'll just go and rent a room down in the local Regis office and just sit there because, we've had a quiet hour here because I put a sign on my door that says, don't knock on it. But normally people would do that. And that's business life, isn't it? It intrudes. You need to find the time to box off to do it properly.
And I'm going to action on that straight away because I've been struggling to get some work done that I need to do with my coaching that I do. And even before this, I set myself a 2-hour window, 12 till 2 before we booked in for this, to try and thrash it out. And I've sat in my office, my wife come home, then my phone rang, and before I knew it, it's 1 o'clock, and she's like, do you want a cup of tea? So I'm like, okay, 10 minutes there, getting a tea. And I basically just lost them 2 hours that I needed to get that work done. So I think I'm going to start going outside of my, as you said, the environment that I'm used to try and make sure that I have least distractions and get that time, because I know that 2 hours worth of work and planning and preparation will be leveraged time and time again.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, again, another lovely bit of information from Uncle Ray.
If this catches on, you're in trouble.
I'm gonna try my best to get this to catch on. Sorry, I just think it's suitable for how much everyone respects you and everything. I think it's a great title because trust me, everyone I speak to have just such high regard for your. You look like you don't know why, but what you do is very helpful. So please continue to be a part.
Shut up. My PR people are going to be asking for a bonus if you keep going on like this.
But right. Is there anything else you'd like to have a chat about?
Just to say thanks ever so much for taking the time and having me on the show. And I guess a message to anyone who's listening, these are difficult times. Stay safe out there. Keep washing your hands, keep 2 meters apart, but keep fitting the boilers.
Yep, and I'll second that. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you for listening. This episode was brought to you by Off the Tools.
I really hope you enjoyed the show. I just wanted to put it out there for anyone listening that I offer business coaching, but also life coaching. My life is centered around something called the 3 Bs, which stands for body, business, and balance. When you work with me as a coach, we tackle all 3 aspects of life. So you as an individual, body, mindset, health, fitness, knowledge, education. Business B obviously stands for your business, improving, maximizing opportunities, elevating, making more money. And balance stands for for friends, family, loved ones, making time for everything in your life. And the 3 Bs is the core element to that. If you'd like to learn more, I would ask you to reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you might be consuming my information. Or you can email me directly at wayne@offthetools.co.uk. I'm here waiting to assist you to elevate across all aspects of life. Have a good one. No excuses. Let's go.